the audience that are coming. This is the Building Resilient podcast. I'm very excited that I'm going to have today. Very honored to have here with me Tara LaFon Gooch. You will say, who is Tara LaFon Gooch? She's going to introduce herself, but we are very good friends. We connected here in LinkedIn. We can stay here hours talking the way we met ourselves, but it was something that for me was kind of magical. I'm going to say a snippet how we got connected, because there was a guy that was a follower of her that she posted something. I believe that you were posting related to the TEDx that you had done, and he tagged me saying, "Hey, you both have to connect." And I didn't know her, and we got connected, and it was an immediate connection. I did a podcast as a guest in her podcast, and now she's my guest. So welcome, Tara, to be here. I'm going to introduce you a little bit to the audience that is here. Tara LaFon Gooch she's a TEDx speaker. Is two-time best-selling author. She's going to talk about her book. And she's a dynamic CEO of the Best Branding Solution. And as a global speaker in a top personal development, she has a podcast. She's a host of the Grass podcast. I was honored to be in her show. Tara empowers leaders to communicate with confidence. She leads with authenticity and builds the magnetic personal brands. I can testify that. Once held back with her self-doubt, she transformed her life, and now she teaches how to do the same with her signature method, that is the GRASS method. Maybe you can introduce your method. Gratitude, responsibility, action, sight, and purpose. Tara today helps hundreds of entrepreneurs and thought leaders to land their TED Talks. She has done incredible TED Talks to other people. So thank you, Tara, to be here in the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jose, and I'm really excited to talk about servant leadership with you.
Yes, it's a great topic. When I was doing this, because this is a set of 5 shows that I put it as a compound of the 5 top skills that a leader had to have in 2025. That we begin with emotional intelligence. We continue with the servant leadership. I'm going to have with my very good friend Charles the adaptive leadership. We're going to be talking about the purpose-driven leadership and the anti-fragile leadership. So there are very key things that a leader has to have. But for me, when we were talking about servant leadership, I could not think about you.
Well, thank you. It's good to be synonymous with servant leadership. I'll take that.
Okay.
It's really important, Jose. And we hear this word a lot, servant leadership, servant leadership. We see posts about it on LinkedIn. We see Instagram posts, It seems very inspirational.
Yes.
But there's something that I think we need to understand about servant leadership. It's not just inspirational, because when I think of inspiration, I think of motivation, and I think of that as lasting about 5 seconds, right? So if we've ever been really motivated to work out, 5 seconds later, it could immediately go away, can't it? So it's not just about inspiration and motivation. This is actually about transformation, not only in yourself as a leader, but in the entire team and organization as a whole as well.
Correct. That's totally true, because you can inspire, but that inspiration you had to transform in action. The people take action. That is totally true. I'm going to make you the first question that we have here. What does a servant leadership mean to you? How do you shape that leadership style? What do you think about it?
Yeah, the way I think about it is, there's a lot of disengaged employees out there, and the statistics are actually alarming, Jose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So if you look at most people, they don't even know what their job actually is. And it's shocking.
Yeah.
And then there's statistics that also say that people trust strangers more than they trust their own bosses.
Wow.
Okay, now this is not me. This is Harvard Business Review, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's compounding on all of this is that we have built cultures, not just in the United States, but globally, that are strictly profit-centered and not people-centered at all.
Yeah.
So not only do the employees of a company not know what their actual job is, because there's probably a lack of training, probably a lack of protocols, probably a lack of, SOPs,
Mhm.
documentation. But then people don't even trust the managers, the leaders within their teams and organizations as a whole. They trust a stranger more than their own boss.
Wow.
So there's a disconnect here. And, you talked about emotional intelligence for just a moment. That's in a previous episode that you have.
Mhm.
But that's a huge component of what servant leadership actually is.
Correct.
Because when you think about an organization, it's a body, just like we're a body. And just like we're a body with many different cells, right? We have bacteria, we have all sorts of things going on to support this one ecosystem. Servant leadership is the lack of the congruency between the cells. It's it's about a self-service, not a whole service,
Yeah.
not a service of the entire body.
Yeah.
So, and this comes from a feeling of need of even competition amongst team members. Like I see this all the time. Competition amongst team members, disconnection of purpose, right? There's nobody at the top who's leading with intention, with clarity, with
Correct.
people in mind. And what is it causing? Disease throughout the entire body. So, servant leadership is very important because if we don't have people, we don't have business. What do you think about that?
Of course. And let me tell you, I always say that the secret sauce to a leader is connect from the human side. If the people could know how important that is, they will take more attention to that, because those people that have that their heart, because sometimes the people don't open too much because they can think, they can feel like they're weak, and it's not true. It's not true. When you begin to be more open with your employee, and you begin to be more connected to them, and that doesn't mean that you're going to accept everything they want to do. Is that you're more empathic, and you can say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. So now you can connect in a better way. If the people could know how important that is to connect with the people, and how that activates, because you talk about the body, and that's true. It activates the body, that is the company. And I'm going to say something here, because this is something that really for me is a passion, because all my life I really believe in that. I really believe in that. And that I have the opportunity to work with several cultures. One of the things that I always understood is that the only way you connected with the people was in the human side. No matter what culture you were working with, different religions, different background, different culture, but when you connect in the human side, that is where everything got activated. So totally with you. I'm going to make you another question. So, thinking in that, how can a leader balance, the performance that is important in a company, and taking care of the people's value? Because you need, because a leader now is here, he has to, deliver. He has a board, his stakeholders, he has to deliver, but at the same time, he has the people. How a leader can balance that? What is your idea on that?
Yeah, I've never found it difficult to motivate people when it's for the right reasons, right? And I think with a lot of companies, they throw a generalized incentive out there. So, oh, just need to make this to get this little trophy or this plate or placard. Well, that doesn't mean a lot to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first step is actually understanding what motivates people. What motivates people? What drives people? Because there's going to be some people that are naturally motivated and inclined to, yep, I want that bonus. I want that monetary incentive. I want that plaque. I want that whatever it is. Other people are more incentivized for other reasons. Maybe they
Correct.
want more PTO. Maybe they want some kind of, I don't know, extension or flexibility. Well, you have to first understand who the people are
Correct.
before you can deliver them
Yeah,
what.
know your audience.
Yes, you have to know your audience. And that comes with asking questions. So the ownership on this motivation, on this productivity starts with the leader. And my granddad had a really good saying for leadership that he told me when I was really little. I've never forgotten it. So I'll share it with you now.
Okay.
We were driving down the road one day. This was in Baltimore County where he lived. And we passed a closed business. And then a little while longer, we passed another closed business. Well, the first one we passed was actually his old company,
Oh, wow.
right? So he was retiring and everything. Well, I asked him, I said, how did that happen? Right? And he said, such profound wise words, a fish rots from the head down. I didn't know what that meant, right? Because I'm like 7, 8 years old, right? I said, what do you mean a fish rots from the head down? And he gave me the analogy and he said, well, if you've ever seen, a nature show and just picture you have a fish, you hang it up and the head rots first and then the rest of the body and then the tail's the last to go. And he said, so in a business, if you have a leader at the top that's maybe toxic or a gaslighting kind of manager, something like that, you'll see the entire company go down, right? A fish never rots from the tail up. So this is something that I think we need to be conscious and cognizant of as leaders, that the ownership starts with us. And it starts by asking those right questions to get to know employees on a human level, not just that transactional employee level. Again, it's about deepening a relationship because most employees are disengaged, most employees are not trained, most employees don't know the basic concepts of their job functionality, and most employees don't even know the mission, the values of an organization. Imagine bridging those gaps for people, connecting the synapses so that they understand the why, the greater why behind the work that they're doing. When you understand the greater why, you have greater impact, longevity, and customer satisfaction. And what happens to your productivity? It naturally increases.
Increases. That's why I say that is the secret sauce, because it's like a ripple effect that you create. And let me say you something. Sometimes the employees, as you said, are disengaged because they feel like a number.
Yes.
They feel like a number in our organization, and that is the worst thing that can happen. I'm gonna put you here an example. That I'm Venezuelan born, and during the 70s, 80s in Venezuela, unfortunately today that's not the case, but Venezuela was very wealthy. It was one of the wealthiest countries of Latin America. And I began working there in the oil and gas in the national oil company. The people that were working there, when you begin to work, you stay there forever. So you begin to work and you knew that you were going to be working for the next 40 or 45 years there. And you know how the people called at that time PDVSA? They didn't say PDVSA. They call it my company. That was, everybody referred to the company as my company. There was a sense of belonging. I remember my dad and my father-in-law, they both worked there in PDVSA, and they were so proud. And when I began to work there, for me it was like a really not. It was not a work. I was feeling like they were transferring me a legacy. All that thing today was disappeared, destroyed by the regime that is there. But that is a great example how you can create a great company, but at the same time you can destroy everything because of the people. Everything is because of the people. So the people can make a company great or can make it a disaster. Because as you said, when you have the top, the leader that can, you know, it, create that umbrella effect, it can make something good or can make it very bad, very bad.
Absolutely.
Can you share a story of about a case of a servant leadership that maybe that you have seen that can transform a organization, some personal story or somebody that you know? For example, this case that I mentioned, something. Can you share a story of that?
You know what's interesting? So before I stepped into entrepreneurship full time, I was a corporate sales director, and I was really good at what I did, right? Occasionally we'd even go to places like Jamaica for customer sales trips, right? Well, I had many competitors, but there was only one I considered an actual competitor. And that's because the leader at the top really was engaged. Not only did she know her whole team, but she even knew who I was. And I didn't work with her, right? We were technically competitors, but I had a huge amount of respect for the company she built because it's over $500 million in a year annual revenue in a very competitive, tight industry. So, I didn't realize it fully at the time, her leadership ability, but I realized it after I left the company and organization because we actually became friends.
That's great.
Yeah, and you know what? She said, I've been following your work for a long time, and I love your values, and I would love for you to work with me. Now, I never took her up on the offer because I became a full-time entrepreneur, but that's what a servant leader does. It's not a comparison, it's not a competition. It's looking at how you can leverage people and bring them up and recognize talent without stifling it. I
Correct.
think that's so important to be able to recognize talent. And again, that comes with emotional intelligence and competence as well. An unconfident leader, and I talk about this a lot, confidence, because I see it as such a root cause for so many disruptive things,
Hmm.
business included, leadership included. A
Hmm.
confident leader hires people smarter than them
Yeah.
so that they can scale, grow, rise, and bring those other people along with them, right? So, servant leadership, it's so rarely seen, but when it is done well, through confidence, through emotional intelligence and gratitude and service, stewardship, actual stewardship of people, it's remembered and appreciated. And right now, I know that I could call on her at any time if I needed something or we could work together. And that's the power of connecting on that real level, but paying attention. There's so many people around you that are immensely talented right now.
Hmm.
I know there's a ton of companies out there who spend a fortune on recruiters. You don't have to if you pay attention.
Correct.
If you put your boots on the ground a little bit and just start noticing, you'll see patterns, you'll see people, and you'll find that there's an appreciation for somebody out there right now in your network that you could work with, and chances are they could be one of the best partners you've ever had.
I always say that if, when you're in a company or in any business, you spend more time with that people than with even with your family because you stay 8,
Yeah.
10 hours a day. So why you cannot become friends,
Yeah.
colleagues and friends? I always mention that I for me it's funny because I worked like almost 40 years ago with a company that is a Japanese group that we had a joint venture, and we became so close friends that today we have a WhatsApp group with all the guys that work with me. All of them almost are retired, and now we share photos of our grandsons. So it's something it's like a power group, and we worked 40 years ago, and it's incredible that the people that when I came back from my situation, I remember they contacted me and said, "Hey, Jose, the company was called Teikoku, and the WhatsApp group is called the Teikuqueros. So it's like the people from the coco, and they opened the WhatsApp group, and they already have opened, and they invited me. And when I came to the WhatsApp group, I got surprised seeing so many people connected that we were colleagues 40 years ago. And I remember when I worked in that group, for me it was a pleasure going to my job because I felt like we were family.
Yeah.
I wasn't the boss by the time, but I really enjoyed working with them because we work like a family. We create that environment, and by that time, nobody was thinking in servant leadership. It was only a style of leadership, a
Yeah.
human side human. Today, you have this, a servant, this type of thing, but by that time, I never saw that was a servant leadership. But we were practicing. We were really practicing because one of the things that for me is important is that because you don't have to accept the other person, but at least you need to understand them. Understand them, and when you understand them, you can have a better approach to them. Even if you don't agree with them, you can have a better approach to them. I don't know if you agree with that.
I love that. Absolutely. You can always find common ground, right? And,
Yes.
maybe somebody is listening to this right now and says, that's great. Where do I get started? So, if you don't mind, I would like to share just a 3-step process for that.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
The my yours.
So it's something super simple that I implemented in my business that has helped my business not only scale and grow, but do it in a very humanitarian way, a very empathetic way that actually builds relationships. And since I'm faith-based, I looked for the Bible for answers for this, and I prayed about it because it's not always easy. Like, how do we serve someone, not just as an employee, but even as a client? Right? Because that's so important. So for me, it was trying to align myself with who God is. What qualities does God have that I could possibly emulate? Right? And it sounds seemingly difficult. How can I emulate God's qualities? Well, it's actually easier than it sounds. And if we think about God, we're just thinking about the nature of God for just a moment. And when I think about God, I think of a generous giver. Not only is he a generous giver, he's a proactive force, not a reactive force. So God was the first to give. This is interesting. This is a different concept, right? Because when we talk about being a giver, a lot of people think about just giving here and there and when it's reactive and maybe expecting something in return, or what can I get from somebody if I give to them? No, no, no. This is a proactive force of
For,
giving first. So
for
that's
give is an art.
it's an art.
I call it the art of giving because really it's an art.
It really is, yes. So it's a proactive giving, it's giving first, and that's value and that's of love and service. The second thing that we know about God is he gives often,
Mhm.
right? So this is important. God is a giver, he gives often. He gives without expectation, he doesn't have boundaries. He didn't sit back and wait for permission to give. He simply gives without expectation. But the most important step to this is that God gives with unconditional love.
Yeah.
The greatest sacrifice that's ever been given was completely unconditional. And if that's not the best example of servant leadership, I don't know what is.
Well, that's the most important leadership example in the history. So that you gave everything because of us, without now asking nothing in retribution. And I'm gonna say something else. And you said that God doesn't have boundaries, and that is true, because it's so that way that sometimes you're asking, and He can give you not only what you're asking, He can multiply in a abundant way. But it has that ripple effect because you had to connect and give, not asking to get no retribution, only because he will, as a consequence, give back. So the pastor of my church, by the way, he always mentioned that when you plant a seed, that seed never abandons your hand, because it comes back to you, and it comes back as a tree. You plant a seed, he multiplies it, and it comes back to you as a tree. Never abandons your hand. So if you understand that concept, that's why people can be servant leadership, because you give, and it comes back to you. The way you give, it comes back to you. And let me tell you, sometimes it's difficult for some organization because and by the way, today you see a lot of leaders that are tough leaders. I'm not going to mention one in particular, but there are a lot of tough leaders today. And well, that is the style. Sometimes autocratic leadership, that I'm the leader and you do this, blah, blah, blah. But the reality that the servant leadership is what really will, at the end, will remain, because that is what connects the people. Because you can be autocratically giving orders, and the people will make the orders, but that will create loyalty. It will create trust. I don't know. So that's a good question. So
Yeah.
how an organization that had that power-based model, how can they transition to a servant leadership? model. How can that work?
Yeah, it starts with the top, right? It starts with the top, and everybody is going to emulate the top person, right? So in a team, the employees will emulate their leader or their leader's leader.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much more to that, right? If we're talking about a huge structured company, it's the top person that emulates it for everybody else. So, this is important because, in a family, I'm just thinking of my small family unit, right?
Uh-huh.
If I want my daughter to exercise, what is the best thing for me to do? Is it to tell her to exercise or
Mm-hmm.
is it to exercise with her?
Correct.
Is
Correct.
it to tell her to exercise or is it and then I just sit on the couch? No, no, we're going to do this together, right?
Correct.
So I think it's a complete cultural shift and it should be done in a way that, you know, everybody's included.
Correct.
Everybody understands what's going on. This is not something that chances are is going to be an overnight switch. But it starts with that ownership at the top where the top person says, this is who we are. Maybe
Correct.
it's a mass memo. Maybe they get on a podcast and do a video and disseminate it to their entire organization. Say, you
Correct.
know what? I take ownership because ownership is important. That's a really good step. I take ownership of any responsibilities
Correct.
from the past and the present and going forward, and my actions are going to be like this. And all I want you to do is walk beside me and help me emulate these same actions in every interaction you have between yourselves as employees, between your leadership, and with customers as well. Every person that you interact with in business, be a leader and teach people how to do this. And maybe there was a once really cutthroat kind of culture. How can we make it more empathetic? How can we make it more humanitarian? How can we make it more inclusive? And the thing of it is we don't have a choice. Because if we don't do this, people will have one foot out the door and one foot in the door. And you could have 2,500 people that are half in, half out, and you'll waste millions upon millions of dollars, not only in loss of productivity, but a loss in customer satisfaction, employee retention, and so on. We know how expensive this is.
Yeah.
It's in the billions of dollars, and that's why leadership training in the United States alone is billions of dollars every year. I think it's $166 billion a year with only a 10% effective rate, again, according to Harvard Business Review. So there's a 10% effective rate for leadership training. Why? It's not necessarily because the leadership training is 100% wrong or it's a different approach. It's because of the implementation at the top that's failing to actually go to that seed level and be rooted in the ground.
Yeah. If the head is not convinced, the body will not be convinced.
Exactly, exactly. You have to put in the steps. You have to do the work. You have to put in the action. You can't say one thing out of one side of your mouth and then a different thing out of the other and expect congruency. So this is why it's so important, and it really does start at that executive leadership level.
No, and let me tell you something. You said something so true that if you are not being honest and transparent as a leader, and you try to appear doing something that is not you, and you do something different, that is totally devastating to an organization because the people immediately will smell it.
Yes.
But when you are really engaged as a leader and understanding the others and put it as part of your business practice, it becomes so important on that. And let me tell you something. You and I both are connected to an organization that talks about the faith based in the organization. I'm not going to mention here because, but you know who we're talking about. I had the opportunity like 2 or 3 days ago. I was invited in a panel. They were approving a person that's going to be or was a candidate to be president of one of the chapters of that organization. And that this organization is faith-based. And I had the opportunity to be part of the panel. I had the honor to be part of the panel. We were interviewing this person. And when we finished the interview, that person was so humble, had a so great heart that everybody said yes. And yesterday I had the opportunity to talk with one of the guys that was part of the panel. And we were talking about that. The importance in a leader to understand that they really are there and they can serve the others. That doesn't have to be faith-based, but you see, faith-based is even better because you have that as part of your faith, your heart, where you are. So this person, I remember that I got so surprised when it's a lady, when she mentioned that she wanted to be part of that organization because she felt that she had been faith-based during years, but she had never manifested her faith. And she decided to do it because she thought that that was a kind of way that she can evangelize, sharing her faith. And it was beautiful because this is something that people can perceive it. When you do it sincerely from your heart, that people can perceive it, can perceive it. So, and that will not only, you said, the engagement of the employee, because they will trust you more, they will be more loyal to you. Can you imagine when you come to our company and you see everybody with those smiling, attending the people great, and you feel that atmosphere that you can feel it. You immediately can feel it, and you say, "Hey, this is a great company." So not only the retention, that catching a talent, because people will want to come to that company. So it has so many things in positive. That's why I call it the secret sauce. For me, that is the I said that is the secret sauce when you can do that. And let me tell you, going more, I'm going to mention here three examples of great servant leaders in the world: Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela. Tell me if these three guys didn't change the world.
Yep. Yep.
Why?
Yep.
Why they do it?
They had a mission that was bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beyond themselves. It was self-sacrificial and built on that principle of
Mm-hmm.
love that we
Mm-hmm.
talked about, right? And it's so important too. I think about this in my own business from just, working with clients
Mm-hmm.
that you know, I can't work with someone that I can't truly connect with on that
Correct.
deep, deep level. And it's okay if we can't. I'm just not the right fit for you, right? So
Correct.
I think this really starts with knowing who you are
Correct.
and also having, the humbleness to say, I'm not a good fit for everybody.
Yeah.
I can't serve everyone, but who can I serve really, really, really well? Not just who can I serve really, really well? So, I mean, I think of God as my business partner.
Oh yeah.
Every morning, I start off with a thankful acknowledgement and prayer. And then if I'm struggling throughout the day, God give me strength. God give me the confidence to do this because I'm not sure I know how to do it. I need your help. And you know what? Always comes through every single time. So this is important. And if you're a leader of an organization, again, emulate that. And maybe it's not in a faith-based way, but maybe you use it as a value-based way,
Yeah.
right? However you want to convey it to your team, that's up to you. But make sure they're aligned with the values that are inside of your heart.
Correct.
You have to be that visionary because nobody else is going to do it for you.
You mentioned gratitude, and your method is the grasp, and the grasp begins with the gratitude. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so GRASP is a 5-step method that I developed to change my life. It's funny how it started. It was 2022. I was, just recently got over my low point, my rock bottom point. I was suffering from severe depression and anxiety, a feeling like I didn't have a purpose, right? And I had just left my corporate job. I didn't really have a plan. And I knew I needed to, start this business. I just wasn't sure how. So I went to my first networking meeting online. And this was in 2022, believe it or not. It's crazy to think about because I go to about one every 3 days now. Um, But it was my very first networking meeting, and the speaker was talking about her most transformative book she'd ever read, and we should read it. And it's called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. It was published in 1910.
Mhm.
And in the book, chapter 7 especially resonated with me because he talked about gratitude and the reason why gratitude is the foundation for financial success and abundance. But what didn't resonate with me was that it was in chapter 7. When I heard that, it changed my life. None of the other previous chapters truly changed my life. That changed my life. So I knew gratitude wasn't chapter 7, it was chapter 1.
Right.
So I knew that I had something here with gratitude. So I implemented gratitude, completely changed my life, felt like I had a new brain, a new identity, everything. And I knew gratitude was the answer for the first step to becoming self-led. But it's more than that, right? We have to have a responsibility and ownership mentality with that. So we've talked about that here before. So that's really important because that anchors you to the goals that you have. If you don't have the responsibility, those goals are castle building really quick and dreams and wishes. And I knew I needed to take action, but I needed that responsibility mindset first so that when I did take action, it actually produced fruit and it wasn't just wasted activity. And then beyond that, I really knew that I had to anchor my sights and vision on that purpose that I was stepping into. Again, I didn't know what this was back then, right? But the gratitude helped clear my mind. It helped me accept my past. It helped me embrace my present. And it helped me also to be grateful for something that was yet to be. That is true faith.
Yeah.
So the gratitude, before then, I couldn't have really told you what I didn't feel faith, not on that level. Gratitude helped me experience true faith for the first time when I started to be grateful for a future that I didn't even have yet.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you start to see yourself transforming into that future version that you didn't even know was possible. So important, so crucial. So this method is, it's a simple 5-step method. It can be applied to a person. But my next book is How to Grasp Confidence in Leadership. So this method can also be applied to leadership teams and companies as well. And it's completely transformative when it does. So this is at the individual level and at the organizational level as well.
Let me tell you, that's so important what you said. And when you were talking, it was popping things in my mind because today for me, gratitude, I'm with you. I cannot begin my day without expressing gratitude. But I learned it, Tara, and I learned it in the hard way. In my case, I learned it really in the hard way because I always talk about my previous life. My previous life was when I was in corporate before I went to this hostage situation, and I had a perfect life, and I was always with a lot of confidence that anything that I was ambition, I was finding it. So, but I was thinking that it was because of me. And so I became so confident in me that becomes you selfish. You begin to be selfish because you really believe that it's because of you. And then one day come this guy that is in the top and said, no, 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 no. That's not the way. He slapped you and he said, like this, everything is gone. And now you're here in his mercy, asking to get forgiven. And when you understand that, you understand the real concept of expressing gratitude. So when you begin to understand that everything that you have is because of him, is where you understand the real importance of the gratitude. And then you begin to see more clear your purpose, and then you begin to see the thing that even hasn't happened. That you, in my case, in the past, I thought it was because of me. Now I know this because of him, and I express gratitude. And the things begin to happen because now you have faith. So it's so beautiful what you said. And if the people understand this, maybe I don't know if the audience that is hearing this are going to get it, but the people that are hearing this, believe me, What she's saying is totally true because I experience it. The gratitude is the beginning of everything.
It's the beginning of it's the law of increase, right?
Yes.
What you focus on with gratitude, you have more of, right? And again, this is you personally, but also as in your team too.
Yeah.
So it's about looking at your team and noticing things. Again, it goes back to noticing things. And then telling people what they're doing right. It's so easy to tell people what they're doing wrong and to make lists. You know what? It takes a little bit more energy on your part to find the gratitude in any situation and ask then what can I learn from this? What is this trying to teach me? It's such a transformative mindset. And I really do think that gratitude is the ultimate mindset ninja,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you can take any situation and find the gratitude in it. I find the gratitude in everything. So I'll give you one more example. If I get rejected, let's say I call someone and they say, you know what? No thanks. No thanks. Hard no thanks. I thank God. Why? Because I say, you know what? That means I must have something even greater that you have waiting for me. I can't wait to find that. Thank you. Right?
Yeah.
Because we have to think this way, and I've seen it too many times. So, when you're grateful, when you're confident, when you're a servant leader, it's like you have a big jug full of coins. If you shake it, you can't really hear a sound, right? Even though there's a lot of coins in there, you can't really hear anything because there's nowhere for them to move. You're abundant, you're full.
Mhm.
When you're an arrogant leader, when you're not so confident and not so grateful, same jug size, but you just have a few coins in it. You know what? When you rattle it,
It's
it
so
makes a
noisy.
lot of noise. It makes a lot of noise. So there's arrogance and there's confidence. They're two completely different things. Confidence is a quiet, calm, collective, competent. Arrogance is loud, noisy, and adds no value.
Yeah.
Two completely different things.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking, trying to compare those styles because the traditional style is more focused on the power. The servanthood is more focused on serving others. If you are focused on the power, you want to have control.
Yes.
But when you are a servant leader, it's like more collective the control. It's a shareable control. And when you're a traditional leader, everything is because of my authority. So things are totally different. So and yeah, you said it, are noisy because I have the control, but that doesn't mean that the people are with you because maybe the people will do things because they need their job, but they will not do it with the same confidence, the same trust, the same value if they will feel that they are treated as people. So again, for me, that is really the secret sauce. So now going more in a personal way, what was your turning point in your life, Tara? Tell us a story about your turning point and how you see you today and beside what happened in the past. Give me a little of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of them, right? I think, a big part of my story was being in an organization that wasn't aligned with my values. And I'm a high performer, right? I'm a natural high performer, natural leader,
Mhm.
but I never felt aligned with the organization's values because they had values on paper, but then behind closed doors practiced a different tune, right? So I never felt an alignment. So even though I was really good at my job and what I was doing, I wasn't putting in the purpose in the work. I was going through the motions, not putting the actual spirit into the work, the purpose. There was nothing there. It was empty. You might as well hire a robot at that point, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good way to kill really high performers is to squash them with a two-sided mirror. If they see that it's one thing on one side and then the other thing on another side, they can't unsee it. So the best thing I did was to believe in myself and just try. Even though I was told I was going to fail, even though I was told that I didn't know how to start a business, trust me, I've heard it all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just tried. And again, going back to that faith, it took a lot. It took a lot. This was not something that was easy for me at all. But it was a continuous practice. And that, going back to the grass method, that's one thing I want to just reiterate that this is a lifestyle change. This is not a quick fix, a little hack, a cute tool, a fluffy thing. This is a lifestyle change and it's a strategy, right? It's a strategy and it's something that you practice every single
Correct.
day.
Correct.
So the same thing would go for a person, again, or a business, a leader in a business, an organization. It's a lifestyle change. Don't do something to check a box. It's not
Yeah.
going to work. That, again, we might as well hire robots at that point. Don't
Yeah.
do it. Don't waste your money.
Yeah.
This is part of the reason why billions are wasted every year on this. There's a lack of ownership. So it's so important that we treat it as a lifestyle change and actually something you incorporate and embed into the DNA of the culture in order
Correct.
for it to continue to replicate itself and flourish.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And for the audience that are hearing me, I everything that Tara is talking, I can testify that is like that. She's a true leader, a servant leader. She has a group, a speaker that I attend, and I always see Tara giving so much. You really are a true giver. She always giving and giving and giving. I say, wow, this is unstoppable. So I'm really proud that you're my friend Tara, and then we met this way. So tell the audience where they can find you, where are your contacts, because we have like 10 minutes to come to the end. So talk about your business and talk about your how they can contact you and what comes to your life. What are the next steps in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a branding and marketing agency called Best Branding Solutions. We work with thought leaders, subject matter experts, and speakers and authors to help them gain positioning and authority so that their voices and missions are heard on the global level. And then I'm also an author, just like you. So I have two books now, and then another
I'm
book.
only one this year.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. Big supporter, big supporter. I love your book. But yes, I'm an author as well, and then I speak on stage as well. So I'm really passionate about helping people elevate their lives. And one thing that, really I'm just stepping into just recently, I realized that I wasn't praying for big enough goals. I wasn't praying for big enough impact. So I've decided I want to help way more people. So I'm going to be implementing a course that's going to go through the GRASS method and it'll be accessible for anybody, regardless of what economic circumstance that you have. It's going to take you through the entire next book in full and really help, especially faith-driven, purpose-led leaders step into the most confident versions of themselves, the version of themselves that God designed them to be. Imagine waking up to the version of yourself that God actually designed you to be, not who your mom says you would be, not who you thought you were, or your friends or your neighbors, the one that God actually created you to be in his image. Imagine that. So I'm doing a course for that. My goal is to sell it for $1. People thought I was crazy when I said that. Crazy. They said, how could you do that for $1? I said, you know what? I'm going to impact so many millions or billions of people's lives that it won't matter. Right? Yes. Yes. So I really want to do this and it'll be great. And it's not about the money, it's about the impact and it's about the lives touched. And I can't wait to do it.
When you were talking about what God has the purpose for you, yesterday I have a meeting with a lady that came to my church. Our pastor brought it. She's from Nicaragua. She has no Nicaragua, no Guatemala. Guatemala, 20 years in faith basis, and she talks about, but because she's a psychotherapist, she talks about raising kids, and she was telling that sometimes it's very common that you as father you try to push your kid to do what you think that they have to do. And she was saying, you have to try to model your kids, you have to advise them, but leave that God guide them because they
Yeah.
already have their purpose.
Yep.
Let them find their purpose. And when I was hearing that, it blew my mind because that is so true. When you yourself find where is your purpose. For example, you're talking now that you want to impact millions. So for you, that is your purpose. So when I discovered that I wanted to go to talk to kids to the schools, I found that that was part of my purpose. So, and when you find that, you really do not only feel that you found your purpose, you feel joyful because now you found that what you're doing is what God called you to do. So this is something that the audience that's hearing here, what Tara has said here is golden nuggets. So we're almost coming to the end. We have 5 minutes to finish this. So give us your final pitch for in the 5 minutes, where they can find you, where you contact. If somebody wants to contact you, how they can get to you.
Absolutely. I'm big on LinkedIn. I'm always available there. So connect with me, Tara LaFon Gooch. You can also visit my personal website. That's taralafongooch.com, or bestbranding.solutions is my company page. And then, of course, my books are available on Amazon. My final words of wisdom for anybody hearing this that says, what is my purpose? All of this sounds great, Tara. I'm not feeling confident. I'm not sure of myself. I don't even know if I have a purpose. Let me tell you something. I want you to go to Psalms, and I want you to read the words, the poetry that King David wrote. And I want you to sit on those words, because that man went from the youngest of what, 8 brothers?
Yeah,
He was a shepherd boy in a field. And when the prophet Samuel
the
came,
last in the row.
yeah, when the prophet came to Judah, he wasn't even presented.
Correct.
And he became the next king of Israel. But if he would have listened to his brothers, his father himself, and sat with self doubt, the course of the entire human history would change, and it would have disrupted the line that led to the birth of the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. So this is something important. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter where you are. What matters is where you're going and who you're walking with.
Correct.
That's it. And if you were made and you're created, which everyone listening to this is, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And there's a God that loves you. You just need to hold his hand and walk the way. And he'll guide you on that path. So I encourage anybody listening to this right now, don't listen to self-doubt. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter where you are. None of that matters. What matters is where you are going. That's it.
Walking with the grace of God.
That's right.
Well, Tara, we're coming to the end. That was a beautiful program. I hope that the people that are hearing this really enjoy it. Tara is a person that she is a real servant leader. So I didn't can find nobody better to have here to talk about this, because she's a true servant leader, and she has that as part of her DNA. Because I feel that way about you, Tara. That's part of your, that is you. That is you. So, and I'm too. So this is one thing that why we connected, because I really believe in that. And even when nobody were talking about servant leadership 30, 40 years ago, for me was a style of life. And that creates you the culture that taking care of the people makes more sense of belonging. The people at the end are more trustful, are going to be more loyal. I always say that that is the secret sauce. So coming to the end, Tara, give me your first and last 3 minutes to finish this show.
One more time. So, another thing too is that confidence is, again, it's possible for anyone. So, regardless of what you're feeling right now, maybe you're not sure how to lead. Maybe you don't even know how to lead yourself. Just remember, it starts with you, and it starts with small intentional steps every single day. And those small intentional steps can break a boulder. And if you don't believe me, consider the biggest boulder you've ever seen. a tiny little trickle of water eventually will break that boulder in two. It may take 1,000 years, it may take longer, it doesn't matter. The point of it is that small intentional effort every single day will eventually lead to something immense.
Yeah.
But we have to show up, right? Because if we don't show up for our team, we don't show up for ourselves, we're not showing up for anybody.
Correct.
So it's so important that, we just keep that in mind, that this is not something that's a leap and a bound and a marathon and mountain climbing on Everest. This is a slow, steady race that eventually, leads to that crushing victory that we all want. But it doesn't happen overnight. It is something that's intentional and strategic, that when thoughtfully implemented over time, it leads to immense, immense blessings and abundance for our businesses and our lives. But it starts with you. So before you can lead a team of many, you first have to learn self-mastery and be a leader of one.
Well, thank you. Thank you, the people who are hearing this show. We're coming to the end. Tara, thank you for being here. Thank you very much, my friend. See you next time.